This is the Brother Seamus Show. It's a new segment I like to call the Coffee and Cannabis Hour. Now you may or may not indulge in coffee or cannabis. You could have tea and crackers. Or crumpets. You could have crumpets, people. But it's an idea. It's a thought. Now I'm doing a double live stream here, so I want to be cautious that I don't overtax my already overtaxed GPU. Yeah, it's running, well, it's staying down in the 59, 63, 53 range. And what I did is I lowered the resolution on one of my monitors, and I lowered the output resolution of my stream on OBS. So I'm going out at 720p, as the kids would say. And it looks like it did ease up. It did allow me a little bit of breathing room. So then what I can do is I can go over here and I can give you a full screen. Hey, look at that. Look at that. Now, I've been curious about, I'm using, for those of you who are keeping track, I'm using TikTok's Live Studio, but I'm running OBS, which I think stands for Open Broadcasting Source. And the OBS looks just like that. It gives you, it allows you to have a little switcher on your computer, so I can go over here and choose a different scene, a different camera or whatever. They call them scenes, and I can switch back and forth. And it's fun. Now what I can't do, like I'm running a color filter here, and it won't let me run too many filters at once, which is fine, I get it. I need a bigger, you want a juicy graphics card if you're going to run OBS and use filters. You don't have to use filters. I do like filters, though, I will say. This is just plain old color correction. Let's mess with it a little bit. Let's mess with the gamma. Oh, that's a little better. A little bit better on the gamma contrast. Right in. I like a heavy contrast. I like my blacks to be black and my lights to be light. Brightness. We could go a little brighter. Yeah, I guess that's okay. Gamma. A little more gamma. It's a little too hot on the gamma, maybe. There we go. So anyway, if TikTok people are listening, please just let us use OBS. We don't need your software, TikTok. We don't need you messing around with software that you clearly don't understand, because you can't even give me a cut button. The basic thing should be two little screens with a cut button. Now maybe it's hidden in there and I just haven't found it, but I don't see it. I don't see it inside your TikTok Live Studio program. And if you want to see what TikTok Live Studio looks like, it's probably on Display Capture 2. Let's try Display Capture 2. Let's transform it to fit to the screen. Oh yeah, there we go. Let's make this guy full screen. That's going to take up a little bit more juice, isn't it? So we're playing some risky games here with the graphics card, but I think it can do it. It's trying to do it. It's thinking about it. It's thinking about it. Maybe I should let it off the hook. Thanks for joining SJ333, Monica 8043, Danny Stack, and Tucker Dude. Oh, see, Tucker Dude, I might have to follow you. I like to follow people with funny names. Tucker Dude. Oh yeah, this is mad at me now. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to a smaller image. So I tried to go full screen on TikTok Studio so you could see it. But I did something bad. I did something bad, people. I think it got full screen somehow. Okay, let's leave that alone for a minute. We're gonna let that simmer in its own. Let it simmer in its own saucepan there for a minute. I'm your brother Seamus. Here are the rules. We can talk about anything. I'm mostly going to bring up an uncomfortable topic, which is abortion. Because we've decided that it's okay to deny women basic health care. We've decided that's okay in certain states. And somehow the Supreme Court's okay with it. I wonder why they're okay with it. Oh, that's right. That's right. They're okay with it because... Why? Everybody say it at home. I know, and I'm not here to start a fight with Trump voters, but you should be aware. You should be aware, Trump voters, that Roe v. Wade was overturned. The national right to abortion, even though they were chipping away at it from all different angles, trying to make it so complicated that you couldn't get an abortion, but the national right that a woman had to an abortion was stripped away because Donald Trump appointed 3 justices who promised to do that. And that was him, that was Donnie keeping his promise to the furthest right version of Christianity. So he made a deal with them because they really, really, really want to, I know this makes people mad, but it's really not about saving babies. It's about controlling women. And now we see the proof of that. The proof of that is happening all the time now, and it's been happening for about 2 years. And we're just now finding out about it. Why is that? Well, because when a woman goes to an emergency room to get treatment for a miscarriage, there are many different things that can go wrong. So rule number 1 is pregnancy is dicey business. It's easy to get pregnant, but about 1 out of 8, 1 out of 10 pregnancies run into some kind of trouble. I'm going to use the term miscarriage here because it's just a general term. There might be lots of different nuances to what a miscarriage is, but for our purposes, let's just go with that. So if you know someone that thinks about abortion or has been affected by abortion, what they may understand better than a lot of folks is that abortion is just a general term for a medical procedure that stops a pregnancy. Well, sometimes your body stops the pregnancy all by itself. You know why? Because Mother Nature's a mad scientist. She really is. Mother Nature's a mad, mad scientist. That's part of the reason that female humans with ovaries, have so many ovum. I think female humans are born with 300,000 eggs. Then even by the time they're 30, they still have, I believe, about somewhere between 30,000 to 300,000 usable eggs still. And you know why? Because evolution knows that it might have to try repeatedly to actually succeed at getting a fully developed human. Because the process to getting to fully developed is fraught with peril. It just doesn't always work. There could be a million reasons why. I mean, not a million, I'm being hyperbolic, but there are probably many dozens of reasons that a female human's body would need to miscarry or would happen to miscarry, because accidents happen. The problem then is sometimes those complications that I'm referring to in general as miscarriages, where you miscarry a fertilized egg or an embryo or a fetus, depending on what stage it's at, sometimes the miscarriage doesn't resolve itself and puts a woman's life, what I'm learning, I didn't realize how fast they can go from having a difficult miscarriage to being deceased. They go there pretty quick. It sounds like somewhere around, I don't know, 15 to 40 hours. And so these relatively, healthy young women are dying. These women wouldn't have died had they been given the right procedure. And that procedure happens to fall under the umbrella of what people call abortion. So down in Georgia, if your daughter's having a miscarriage, she won't get the procedure she needs until the hospital lawyers are convinced that the physicians won't go to jail. But here's a little wrinkle. The hospital corporations are starting to throw their hands up and say, they made it a point, their PR person made it a point to say, physicians make up their own minds. But I'll bet you what the physicians were told is you better call the hospital attorney and find out if it's okay if you can do this life-saving procedure that's been around for decades, that is the standard of care. That's an important term for all you plaintiffs' attorneys that are listening. This is your time to shine, plaintiffs' attorneys. The law is telling physicians they have to violate the standard of care, and they're doing it. And if you're a physician, you also have a code of ethics. You're violating, the law is telling physicians you must violate your code of ethics and intentionally neglect a woman who's bleeding out. Intentional neglect. You hear that, plaintiffs' attorneys? You hear that, Brian Kemp? You know what that is, Brian? Brian Kemp's the governor of Georgia, by the way, if you're just joining us. Brian signed the law that led to the deaths of these young women, so he's complicit in a quiet genocide against women. He's complicit. So is Greg Abbott. So are all the attorney generals of the states that are doing this. Idaho's involved now. I'm sure Alabama's had unnecessary deaths. Kay Ivey's involved. We don't get to know about the unnecessary deaths until a year or two later, because it takes a while for the investigative boards to find out if there was an unnecessary death. And guess what Governor Brian Kemp just did to the investigative board in Georgia? That's right, he fired them all. Because instead of dealing with the problem, which is that he's got blood on his hands, and it doesn't matter if it's one woman. It doesn't matter if it's one single young woman who's simply having a miscarriage and we don't even know. Okay, this is the part that's going to be hard for some of you right-winger folks. We don't even know what she feels about abortion. She may not be wanting a miscarriage, right? Some of these women are women who are trying to see the pregnancy through. Some of these women are women who maybe have taken a drug to have a miscarriage and it backfired, not backfired, it didn't work right. It doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen in every miscarriage. Some miscarriages go off without a hitch. But can you imagine if yours is not going off without a hitch and you go to the ER and they're like, sorry, you have to go sit over there because we can still hear a fetal heartbeat. Well, but the fetus is not going to survive. It's not viable. It can't be born right now. There's nothing we can do. Doesn't matter. We can still hear the heartbeat. Go sit over there. 20 hours later, with infection raging through the body, it's quite possible, just like in Amber Thurman's case, it's quite possible that nothing that the OBGYN surgeons do now will save her. That's what happened to Amber Thurman. It's happening in Georgia. It's happening in Texas. In Texas, a teenage girl died. I think she tried to go to 3 emergency rooms. They kept bouncing her around. We'll take a closer look in a minute. I just want you to know that we're doing this to women right now with the help of governors in states that were waiting for Trump to do what he did. And now Trump will say, well, I gave it to the states. I gave it to the states. Yeah, and the states are engaging in genocide against women for having miscarriages. So that's what Trump did. That was the deal he had to make to get all this power that he has. Fortunately, for the moment, it's still a society where I can speak freely and criticize the president. By the way, all you people that think Russia is so awesome, go to Russia and criticize Vladimir Putin. I dare you. I dare you. I don't think you'll do it. You know why? Because there's no freedom of speech over there. You can't even call the war in Ukraine a war. Or he'll come, the jackbooted thugs will come along and get you. Now, Donald Trump is a gifted liar. Sometimes I say he's a genius, but I don't mean that he's a proper genius. He's a genius in terms of figuring out how to manipulate the way people feel. And he does that, you know, he has a number of tricks. His most important and dangerous trick is that he does it by making you hate other groups of people with whom you're not even really affiliated and you don't know. Do you really know any immigrants that come here to work? They're perfectly normal people. Immigrants happen to be just like you and me. I know. It's mind-blowing, isn't it? This is the Brother Seamus Show. That's kind of my sermon right there. I'm gonna do 1 hour today, because if you go over an hour, TikTok won't let you post it. But then at the same time, when you get to a 90-minute live stream, then TikTok is like, oh, you did so good. You got to 90 minutes. And then I'm like, let's post it. Not that anybody wants to watch 90 minutes of this. Maybe they will. Who knows? But then TikTok says, no, you can't post it. It's 90. You can only post up to an hour. So let's summarize. In 2024, in the United States, we are, I don't know how else to say it. We're killing young women who are having miscarriages in hospitals, state-of-the-art hospitals, in Atlanta, Georgia, in Houston, in Dallas, up in Idaho. And it's just the tip of the iceberg. The names that we know: Amber Thurman, Candy Miller. Let's take a look here. I think I lost the art. Oh, there they are. Okay, so this is Portia. Portia died because she needed a DNC and she couldn't have a DNC. That's the bottom line, okay? She needed it. She couldn't have it. I believe her mother or mother-in-law was a physician who told her you needed DNC right away. And what happened? She didn't get it. They denied her what she needed, and she died. So Portia died. And where was this? This was in Texas. So Brian Kemp is not directly responsible for her death, but guess who is? Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott is responsible. Over the course of 6 hours on June 11th, 2023, Portia Numezi had bled so much in the emergency department at Houston Methodist Sugarland that she needed 2 transfusions. She was anxious to get home to her young sons, but according to a nurse's notes, she was still passing large clots the size of a grapefruit. So she's really having some issues here, people. I am not an OBGYN, but my mother was a labor and delivery nurse, so I grew up hearing stories about childbirth. Hope dialed his former mother. Coke dialed his mother, a former physician who was unequivocal. You need a D&C. She told them, referring to dilation and curettage, a common procedure for the first trimester miscarriages and abortions. If a doctor could remove the remaining tissue in her uterus, the bleeding would end. But when Dr. Andrew Ryan Davis, the obstetrician on duty, finally arrived, he said it was the hospital's routine to give a drug called misoprostol to help the body pass the tissue. So basically, he's going to give her a drug instead of giving her the procedure that she needs, probably because he knows if he gives her a D&C, he could be looking at in Texas, people, you know what they threaten you with? I wouldn't even pause the music for this, which I almost never do. You know what they give you in Texas? They give you 99 years, or they threaten you with 99 years. You could get 99 years in prison. So that's why this physician he's hesitating to do the D&C. Now, I think he needs to be held accountable for not giving the standard of care here. But he maybe would argue, well, the pill is the standard of care. It's like, well, it wasn't working. So what happened? She was hemorrhaging. She's bleeding. The doctors know she's got a blood clotting disorder, which puts her at greater risk. And misoprostol is not the correct choice at this point because it's not going to work fast enough. Apparently, if you continue bleeding at the rate she was bleeding, you can go into what's called hemorrhagic shock, which I don't know, but that's what the medical examiner found to be the cause of her death. So she was denied a D&C because the doctors are afraid of jail in Texas. I mean, really, seriously, 99 years is what you're going to threaten physicians with who are trying to make a tough choice? So here's an important thing. Once you get a D&C, which is when they insert a straw-like tube into the uterus and gently suction out any remaining pregnancy tissue, because that's what it is. It's tissue. It's tissue at this point that's not going to survive. The fetus, the embryo, the fertilized egg is not going to survive, so it has to be removed. Once the uterus is emptied, it can close, and that usually stops the bleeding. So you would be alive had you been in Portia's situation. Had she had a D&C immediately, the bleeding would have stopped. And I'm no physician, but I'll bet you she would have stabilized. Don't you think she would have stabilized? In Texas, any doctor who violates the strict law risks up to 99 years in prison. Portia is the 5th case reported by ProPublica in which women died. So we add another, sadly, another name of a young woman to the list. Texas doctors told ProPublica that the law change, the abortion law, let's call it what it is, the Trump abortion ban, has changed the way their colleagues see the D&C procedure. Some no longer consider it a first-line treatment, fearing legal repercussions. And they're dissuaded by the extra legwork required to document the miscarriage and get hospital approval to carry out the D&C. So basically, this is the state of Texas, has made it so complicated and dangerous for doctors to do the proper procedure that they resort to other procedures that don't work as well. So you're not given the standard of care. You hear that, plaintiffs' attorneys? I believe I've said this before and I'm going to keep preaching it. Does a woman not have, does a human who has a uterus, do they not have a right to their own life? Isn't that implied in the Constitution? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But here in Georgia, they can take away your right to life because they want to give it to an undeveloped fetus. But how come Portia's right to life wasn't respected, is what I want to know. And in Portia's case, there wasn't even a fetal heartbeat. That's a whole big thing now. A beating heart does not make you a fully developed human, people. I got some bad news for you. The ability to have conscious thought is when the light comes on, and when, you religious folk would say that's when the soul enters. So up until then, there's nobody home, as they say in The Big Lebowski. So what's happening is the doctors don't want to do it, so they do the Pontius Pilate move. By the way, physicians, you're violating your oath when you turn away patients simply because you're scared of legal ramifications. Misoprostol, the drug that they gave Portia, is not for unstable patients. It's for low-risk miscarriages. It looks like there are more women in Texas since 2022 who, when they were having a miscarriage, they were had the medication pushed on them, even though they knew they needed DNCs. One of the women later passed out in a pool of her own blood. So that's what we're doing to women, people. Stigma and fear are blocking the way for these women to get the standard of care. As this statement really captures it. Stigma and fear are there for DNCs in a way that they are not for misoprostol, said Dr. Allison Goulding, an OBGYN in Houston. Doctors assume that a DNC is not the standard of care in Texas anymore, even in cases where it should be recommended. People are afraid. They say DNCs as abortion, and abortion is illegal. So that's what I mean by the far-right anti-abortionists are now actively causing multiple deaths of women in states that have some version of the Trump abortion ban. It is the Trump abortion ban. I know some of you get mad about that. It is a Trump abortion ban because he's the one that appointed the justices that killed Roe versus Wade. So you can't get out of it. Also, even for those of you that love Trump, you know that he bragged about getting rid of Roe versus Wade. And then he tries to say, well, legal scholars said it should go back to the states. Well, did the legal scholars anticipate that the states are going to actively kill women through neglect? And that they're going to co-opt physicians? That their bullying and their intimidation would co-opt physicians so effectively that the physicians simply wash their hands of the case and they'll send these women to another emergency room, or they'll say, oh, we'll give you this pill, but we're not going to do a DNC, even though that's what you need, and we all know that's what you need. Why does the state government, whether it's Georgia or Texas or Alabama, why does the state government get to make a medical decision regarding the standard of care for women having miscarriages? And I would say this, if this was happening to men or women, state governments should not be telling your doctor, oh, we have a strong political view on abortion, and we have rammed that political view into the medical community. So now you can no longer save a person's life the way you know you're supposed to, because we don't agree with it politically. How about we keep that which is medical separate? And politically, I would like to ask all those attorneys general in Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Idaho, and the governors, You're okay with this, huh? You're okay with signing a bill that actively causes a slow, quiet genocide? You're okay with that? I find that hard to believe. And it will be indefensible. And why don't the women have as much right to life as the fetus? That's my question. How come women don't have that right? Because you've actively taken it from them now. And you've intimidated doctors into doing your will. And I'll finish with this argument. Thanks for joining, Joni. Thanks for joining, Elmer. I don't think you're still here, but it's okay. I'm recording this. I'm going to post it. I would love some comments, but I don't really, excuse me, I really don't care. But comments do drive up the views, so, we got to respect the algorithm. This is your brother Seamus. No hate speech, no violence, and enjoy the beats. Let's see if we can do the slow fade, which uses a lot of video resources. Well, we're at 65, 61, 62%. All right, let's try it. This is a 20-second fade. We'll know if it's using too many resources if the music cuts out. Here we go. Hey, it didn't cut out. That's pretty good. So this is about the most my video card can do. Let me type a note here. Why isn't a fully developed human life worth as much as the undeveloped life of a fetus? Why isn't a fully developed human life worth as much as the life of an undeveloped fetus. By the way, if you want to support this broadcast, please go to bonfire.com/store/humans for democracy, and you can get some cool t-shirts, which I'm about to show you. I'm about to show you some cool t-shirts, people. And you can get our new Proud Snowflake coffee mug. You can get the fancy two-tone or the one-tone. And there's some shirts that say immigrants make great Americans, because it's true. I'll defy anybody to prove me otherwise. Anti-racist shirts. These are... I'm not thrilled with the design here, but I'm gonna say up close, being anti-racist is a good idea. And the idea there, if you're not familiar with the concept of being an anti-racist, which I didn't come up with this, but it's the idea of you don't want to just say, well, I'm against racism, but you don't do anything about it. So the idea of being a true anti-racist would take it would initiate activities to reduce racism. And I think that's a good plan. That's part of why I'm talking about abortion. I don't want to say I'm an ally to humans that happen to have uteri, but I want to do something active to help them. And so I just want to call out the idea that we're actually unaliving women in these states by denying them the standard of care. It's pretty disturbing. But if you go to Humans for Democracy on Bonfire, and there's a link in the top of my profile for Bonfire on both YouTube and TikTok. And I'm recording these days under the banner of the Brother Seamus Show. I should go ahead and share this, shouldn't I? I should share this over on... And if you want to follow us on Facebook, Humans for Democracy is the host on Facebook of the Brother Seamus Show. You can see us here too. We're going to paste that. And we're just going to say we're going live right now. Now I'm going to cut it off in 20 minutes and come back on so that I can post this up. So Portia died because Greg Abbott signed a law that was pushed by his attorney general, who, much like Donald Trump, is facing legal charges. He's been facing them for years. He's kind of a lower level Donald Trump type figure. But these men decided that it was okay to control women to the point of telling doctors, no, you can't help them. If they're having a complicated miscarriage and they're having trouble staying alive, you can, maybe give them a pill or something. So congratulations, Greg Abbott. You are now officially a root cause of a new wave of genocide against women in the United States. How about that? Are you proud of yourself that this is what your career is going to be remembered for? This is the Brother Seamus Coffee and Cannabis Hour Part 2. Smoke them if you got them. So Portia died because of Greg Abbott. Neva, or is it Neve, also died because she was denied the standard of care. Let's say their names. Jocelyn and Neva both died because of this man. Jocelyn left a child behind. Jocelyn. Ken Paxton pushed these laws. Third woman died under, that's Portia. She died, we just talked about her. And then a pregnant teenager, Neva, we already said Neva. So there, and then we've got Candy Miller, not pictured here, and Amber Thurman. And what this man's going to do, and what the other genocidal governors are going to do, is and the attorneys general, is they're going to try to suppress the names of the women, because that's what people like this do. They don't try to fix the problem. They don't want to be embarrassed by it. For example, when COVID was out of control, Trump openly said we have to stop testing because he didn't want to know how much was here. So that's what he's going to do. He's going to try to stop anybody from reporting this information instead of trying to stop the problem. So this is the new battle. And I know at the end, a lot of you might say, well, the election's over, man. Trump won. Sit down. Trump won. Yeah. The fight's not over, bro. It's just beginning. And if you're feeling down about the election, probably watching this isn't going to help. It's going to make you more upset. But what I would suggest, having been a psychologist for so many years, is don't just look at the bad news. Give yourself a break from it for as long as you need, because you're not going to be any use to the resistance, if you want to think of it that way. You're not going to be any use if you're exhausted. And I think we should always resist genocide. Let me be clear about what I'm saying here. Let's resist genocide so that women like Portia don't have to die because she was denied basic medical care. It was well known what she needed. You don't have to be an OBGYN to know that she was having a complicated miscarriage, and she needed to have the uterus emptied so she would stop bleeding. But instead they let Portia die. And that's a heavy thing. It really is. It's a heavy thing. I would suggest take a break from the whole thing for a while, but when you're ready, come back and help your brother Seamus. I'm going to keep talking about this issue until it gets the kind of recognition that it needs, and I think it's already this is mostly based on the work of ProPublica, and I would like all of you to go read the articles. There's about 3 or 4, maybe 5 articles that are explaining why this is happening and how it's happening and how many people knew it was going to happen, but they went ahead with it anyway, because such is the need that some people have to control women's bodies. And you don't have to look too far to find men that will own up to that idea, that that's their goal. Not that I recommend you listen to anything Nick Fuentes says, but if you want to see the kind of man that likes these kinds of laws, I would say look no further than Nick Fuentes or Brian Kemp or Greg Abbott. They're all birds of a feather now. Birds of a sociopathic feather. So I hope you'll do a couple things. One is you'll get registered to vote, because I know some of you didn't vote. You know how I know that? Because your brother Seamus is a voting rights buff. I'm a buff. I'm not an expert. It just means I'm into it. I would even go so far as to say an aficionado. And what your brother Seamus wants to preach on today to you is that 1/3 of eligible voters, 1/3 of American voters sat on their frickin' hands. And that's how we end up with stuff like this. And I'm not putting this all on Texas, Georgia, Alabama, but y'all got to take control of your governor is killing young women. Your governors are participating in a genocide. And somebody's probably going to report me for saying that, but I'm just using the correct word to describe what happens when you create such an effed up law that threatens doctors with up to 99 years in prison if they do a D&C. Once you have that law on the books, you're participating in a process that's going to trickle down, and it's going to end the lives of young women having miscarriages through no fault of their own. And it doesn't matter where you stand on abortion. Do you stand on denying women life-saving health care in an emergency room? One of these young women, the 18-year-old, whose name I'm blanking out on, she had to go to 3 emergency rooms. 3 different emergency rooms, people. That wasn't Portia, but they're the people left behind. It'll break your heart if you read this stuff. So what I'm getting at is, when you're ready, there's her firstborn, Portia's firstborn. And not everybody can deal with this stuff all at once, so there's going to be a lot of denial, and I get that. I've been a psychologist for 30 years. But we need you to rest up, put it out of your mind for a while. Here we go. Oh, it's Neve. Neve Crane, 18, tried to get help at 3 different emergency rooms in Texas. And guess what? Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, made sure that she couldn't get the help. Did he know it was going to come to this? He's going to always say, I had no idea it would lead to the deaths of otherwise healthy young women. Well, guess what, bro? It did. So I hope you'll get rest. You'll do what you need to do. Don't spend your time on social media looking at terrible things. But when you're ready, if you want to talk about it, I'll be here to talk about it. Now, I know that some of you are going to say, why are you on social media if you think social media is so bad for you? Well, it is bad for you. I don't think it's bad for you. It is bad for you. It's just a question of how bad. But where else am I going to reach you? I have to get on the TikToks and the YouTubes simultaneously to try to talk to you people. But I only do this when I feel like it. If I don't feel like it, I don't do this. And I encourage you all to do the same. Save your energy. We're going to need it. It's going to be a long fight, but you know what? This fight is going to rage all around the world. It's not just the United States. So there's really nowhere to run from this. I don't mean to, I know that sounds bad, but what I'm saying is we might as well just stand and fight. Because we're either going to have a country where we can speak our minds and tell the truth, or we're going to end up with what they do in Russia, which is if you call the war a war, you get thrown in jail. And even though a lot of you probably don't agree with this, Mr. Trump most certainly would love to have that much power. He would admit that. So that's why I can't get behind. I can never agree with Trump or people that support him, because his goal is to take away as much power as he can get, and he really, really likes to hurt people. Look what he did to the immigrants at the border, where he, even though they were already in custody, that wasn't enough. He had to separate the children from their parents. So in my opinion, that's intentional infliction of psychological trauma. And what kind of person does such a thing to score political points? That'll be on the exam, by the way. The answer is a sociopath. I like to use the term sociopath. I'm an old school psychologist. I prefer it. We don't use it anymore. We called it antisocial personality disorder for a while, which is like, come on, man, how dumb. How dumb. Many of you are going to claim Obama did things or Biden did things of equal horrific nature, but it's just simply not true. There's never been a president, maybe one, well, for sure one, who, ordered the Japanese into detention camps during World War II. But separating children from their parents, I believe that is a new low for an American president. And did you know, since you guys don't follow this story as closely as I do, probably, there are still, I don't know how many, hundreds, maybe 1,000 children who still, they haven't figured out where their parents are because they just took them. The United States government under Donald Trump issued an order, and it was enforced by Jeff Beauregard Sessions, who will be forever known as the man who enforced the child separation policy. And they took away children before they were even prepared to account for the separation. Like, how do we keep track of? It's like the children were treated like discarded items. I mean, if you go to a fancy restaurant and you give them your coat, they give you a ticket. They didn't even give people a way to retrieve their kids. That's who Donald Trump is. And I know some of you don't like to hear that. And it is going to get worse before it gets better. He's going to take this presidency to hurt as many people as he can. So rest up. I was trying to give you a pep talk and it turned into a demoralizing talk. But rest up. We've got work to do. Your brother Seamus will be here. I'm getting ready to sign off because we're coming up at the 59-minute mark. That way I can send this on over to TikTok directly, and I might do one more hour today. I might not. I don't always do 3 hours because it's a lot, people. It is a lot. If you want to help me out, go to bonfire.com, Humans for Democracy, and you can buy cool shirts and mugs. I'm a proud snowflake. I'm a proud lefty. I did grow up Catholic, but now I'm an atheist preacher, and I roam the countryside doing atheist preaching. Hey, it's been good talking to y'all. I'm going to sign off. We're at 59 minutes. 59 minutes and change. I'm going to kill the YouTube feed over here, too. I'm going to kill